Okay, so let's first briefly describe your physical or cognitive domain intervention assignment from lessons 10 and 11. Okay, so when I did it, the risk or problem, so there was obesity, there was anorexic, and there was social anxiety, malnutrition, and not enough sleep. And what I found interesting about all these was the most responsible, the people that told me about these, they said the most responsible for them were their parents. Like their parents were probably going to have the most impact on them. And so I thought it was interesting though, because from our group, the discussion board, most everyone had obesity. And I feel like that's a big problem nowadays. I think just in children's nutrition or not having good choices. But I think it has to start with the parents with that. If their parents don't help them, they're not going to be able to, their parents are the ones feeding them the food.
Yeah.
And so I think it's the parents who probably are the ones that really are the most responsible. So that's really what I had for the physical domain. Do you want to do your physical domain, or do you want me to just do cognitive? Or okay.
Yeah, so for physical, I also had obesity, and then I talked about physical disabilities, abuse, malnutrition, and then sleep deprivation. And I think, okay, so obesity, like you said, was on several of them, and no one else had physical disabilities. But then I thought abuse was interesting because I think abuse can be social, emotional, it can be cognitive, but also physical. So that's, I don't know, I just put on the physical because really it could go on any of them.
It really could.
I put that the parents are the most responsible because usually physical abuse, is at home. It's not going to be at school or that or in daycare. And so I think they're definitely the most responsible. And then what did I put on here? I think as a teacher or whatever profession you're going into or whatever, you need to be able to recognize those signs of if a child is being abused and things like that, because a lot of times children will try to hide it because they're ashamed, or because if they think they think that if they tell, they're going to get beaten more, or something like that.
Right.
So I think I don't know, it'd be really nice to have awareness of that and to be more mindful of it. So.
No, yeah, I totally agree with that. No, that's interesting. I think, yeah, I agree. I feel like a lot of these can be on a lot other ones.
I agree too. And so I was like, I don't know which ones to put where. And
yeah, it's interesting how one thing can impact multiple domains.
Yeah, obesity really could affect social and emotional by far,
Oh, yeah.
It's the same with physical disabilities. That could affect physical or cognitive, social, emotional.
No, yeah.
A lot of them could, like you said, so.
No, that's interesting that you said that. Okay, and then, so my cognitive, so the risk and problems I had was ADD, ADHD, not paying attention, anxiety, and not using their imagination, and speech delay. And so I thought it was interesting, actually, someone said not using their imagination, because I guess I never really thought of it. But I think it's true nowadays, especially because a lot of kids have computers or iPads or all these different new things, and so they don't go out and play, or they don't.
It's true.
They just have it in front of them. It's so interesting. But I thought, and that definitely I think is going to impact their cognitive domain, and I think also with all the cognitive problems and risk, most of them said it was the parents' responsibility, to kind of limit their computer time and limit what they do before school. Because so my mom's a teacher, and I interviewed her, and she's the one that talked about ADD and ADHD, and because she works in a special needs class. But she just said, she was the one thing they need to stop doing is having their kids play so many video games or computer games, is because then they come to school and they're not already focused. They already have this problem, and then they're already can't focus because they're so focused on that game, or they that's all they think about during the time. So, which I thought was interesting. So I think it really does start with the parents. Of course, sometimes it's the children, they need to make their own decisions, but I think the parents are the ones that kind of have to set the example.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's really sad, like how much the younger generation now, even our generation really, they
Right.
video games and computer games,
Mhm.
and then when like a young child, when you talk to a young child, they don't even know how to respond sometimes,
Yeah,
and it's so sad.
it is sad. No, it really is sad. No, yeah. Okay. And then what about your cognitive?
Okay, so I had ADD and ADHD as well, dyslexia, language barrier, expectations, and then family poverty. And since you've already talked about ADD and ADHD, let's see, let's talk about the language barrier, because I think honestly that's more of an issue than, well, in some areas it's more of an issue than we think.
Right.
I feel like where I'm from Texas, and I remember like 65 or 68% or something of my school was Hispanic, and many of them were English language learners, so they really struggled learning English because most of their parents were there to work in the fields. Actually, they weren't like necessarily there to like live forever, but they brought their children anyways, and so they couldn't. There was always something like, even now in one of my classes, one of my girls from Korea, or one of my student or classmates is from Korea, and she just is not doing very well in the class because she just can't understand what it is that she's learning. Whereas like if it were in, her native language, she would probably do really well,
Oh, yeah.
And anyways, I think that does start at, I think it can be argued like it starts at home and in the school, because if, their parents don't know English, how are they going to teach them English?
Oh, yeah.
So, once a teacher knows, okay, like he only knows like certain words, like very basic knowledge of English. So let me build upon this and then implement the parents into it as well. And I think that's really important, especially for young children. That way, you're creating a relationship with the parents, and you're also showing the parents that I care enough, like I want your child to be able to learn this, and I want you and I to be on the same page.
Right.
So what that is inviting the parents in to be in those meetings with their child as they're learning this language, as they're in their ESL classes,
Yeah.
or you yourself finding someone that to translate or whatever it may be. But you need to have some way to communicate with those parents to be on the same page, and to help you communicate like what your child should be learning, where they should be on this and that. I think that's really important as a teacher to be able to do that. So that's that.
No, I totally agree. Yeah, I think like especially now, there's a lot of people that come here and they don't know English. And so they're smart, but they can't like express.
Yeah. It's not like they aren't learning, because they learn, and they don't necessarily have like a cognitive setback, but it is when you don't know the basic language. So there's no way you're gonna progress without that. So
yeah. No, I agree. It's interesting. Okay, so we did that. Okay. Describe the social emotional domain intervention that you researched this week. Okay, so should I just like kind of go over what I found? The same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's what I'll do. Okay, so let me see. Let me go back. All right, so I talked about the risk or problems. I talked about overly emotional, not having friends, social anxiety again, and then bullying, and doesn't know how to make connections with children at school. And so I think one that stuck out to me was overly emotional, because I think a lot of kids, they just don't know how to handle their emotions. Like they're just, I don't know, they just have like crazy temper tantrums, or they just like, I don't know, they just feel like crying will get them what they want. And I think in school, like, this is what my mom, because this is one that my mom said, and she just feels like, she's like, if they don't get everything they want, then they just like freak out, and then they're like bad for the rest of the day, or like they just like can't calm themselves down. And so I think so I talked about like how parents and teachers, they need to obviously show empathy, because it's actually like a real problem. Like people actually like, that's what I researched.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because I thought it was interesting, and so I think that's what we have to go over as well, like what we researched. So I'll just kind of go over it briefly.
Okay.
So that's what I went over. It's actually called, what is it called? Okay, it's just called emotional sensitivity. Like there's actually a thing called it. Like you could like get like your child could like have that, which I thought was interesting. I didn't know there was actually like a name for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was this therapist, and she said it's a common personality trait that causes some kids to feel physical and emotional pain more deeply than others do. And so they like naturally like they almost like can't handle it. Like it's just some kids just have it. And so they talk about how emotional sensitivity, some kids like don't grow out of it. They just learn to control their reactions better, which I thought was interesting. Like the more they grow up, the more they like can control it. Like it's not they're growing out of it. It's like they can control it better.
Control it.
So, and then I was wondering like, okay, well, what are things that you can do with it? Like, how do you help them? And so they said let talk to this like the child about ways they can cope with it, and let them know how like let them tell you how they're feeling about it. It like gets their emotions out in the open, and it lets them just talk. And then I don't know, for me that's always helped. I just like talk it out. And then it's just better. And then they also said, which I thought was interesting, it said arm them with facts. So like they're having like a meltdown about going to the doctors, you like tell them how it's going to help them. Like you're going to the doctors because it's going to make you feel better. So they said helping them know facts helps them like maybe a little relax a little bit. And then the last thing was like help them solve problems. So that was the first, like we had to look up like 2 articles. So that was the first article. And then the second article, she was like a doctor or something. I think her name's Elaine, and she says a highly sensitive child is one of the 15 to 20% of children born with a nervous system that is highly aware and quick to react to everything. So I thought it was so interesting. I honestly like didn't know that like kids that are super like sensitive, there really is something wrong. Like they're just like, she says there's like a nervous system that is just, they're just react to everything. Like they just kind of have something a little different. It's not that they have something wrong with them, but so I thought that was, and then she says, this is things like when you parent a child with a highly sensitive child, you just see sensitivity as a gift. Like, because I don't know, it's important for kids to be sensitive or like understanding people's emotions, or so it's not like a bad thing, like if they understand how to control it. And then it also says like partner with the child, like be there for them, focus on their strengths and like accept them, like create calmness wherever they are, and gentle discipline, because if they like you give them a huge discipline, they're gonna freak out. And then just like try to connect with them. So I thought those were actually super interesting. I don't know, like honestly, I did not think like being overly sensitive, there was like a thing. I was like, oh.
Like like your child needs some discipline.
Yeah.
And they need to be told no a few more times so that they can understand what it's like to be told no or something like that. But wow, like I never thought about it like that.
It's so interesting. But so it says like, so it said also to talk about, so it says state whether you've actually implemented the intervention personally. So I haven't really like used it, but then it says if not, discuss research or evidence assessing the effectiveness of the intervention. So I guess just doing those things, I think just finding like just talking with them. I think a big thing, just like talking with your child and seeing where they're coming from or like what they're going through. Okay, I really don't like Alfie Kohn, to be honest. Okay. I don't really like the book. I had to read another book of his, but he does like say like you need to listen to your child. Like you need to talk to them and like figure out what's really wrong. And I do agree with that. And I think especially with overly sensitive kids, like you do need, I don't know, you need like they need just someone to talk to sometimes or like understand where they're coming from, because I think some parents are like, okay, my child is overly sensitive. I have no idea what to do. And so you just there it's almost like, okay, we'll suck it up, but that's not going to help. It's like going to make it so much worse. So I think just being open with them and like I think really showing empathy for them, because it really is, they just have something a little different than them. They just show their emotions a little bit differently. I mean, it's not an excuse for them to freak out every time. Yeah. But so actually I thought it was interesting that those articles said that. So yeah, that's what I got.
Okay. For mine, I did lonely, and then bullying. I did hyperactive, and then I did sense of entitlement, and I did autism, and then these kind of go together with the hyperactive, but I did ADD and ADHD as well. And then the reason I included autism is because I think like a lot of times autistic children don't look different. They don't have a physical disability or necessarily like a physical ailment or anything. And so they're a lot of times like they're in the classroom, either they aren't diagnosed yet or they are put in the classroom because like obviously like academically they are just fine in the classroom. But a lot of times socially and emotionally they are not necessarily prepared for the classroom. Right. And I think like that can be really hard for them in those two domains. And I think as a parent, I think it's as a teacher, I think it's really good for a student to be in a classroom even though that they do have autism.
Oh yeah.
I totally think like that's totally appropriate. They need to be with developing peers just like themselves, and things like that. And but socially, like that can be very hard, you know, for a child. And I think it's really important to raise awareness in the classroom that bullying is not okay, or you know, talking ugly about another student. Just like I don't know, common courtesy. Honestly, I think would help that a lot. And then also making like little accommodations for the child, whether he's because sometimes autistic children are like above where they should be. Oh yeah. Academically, and sometimes they are a little behind. And so I think it's important to make those accommodations whenever you're planning something. If he is above, or if that child is, you know, above the class, give him something a little extra to do, like so that he has something to fill that time with, because if not, like he's going to get bored or something like that. And if he is behind, then make that accommodation to help him feel like he's still progressing with the class, but yet he's doing it at his own pace, if that makes sense. Right. I think that that's really important, and also to be able to have a good relationship with the parents once again, because you have to have your parents on the same page so that they want their child in a typically developing classroom rather than some special needs classroom, which is fine if they do, but at the same time the benefits would definitely be reaped if he was in a typically developing classroom. Right. And being able to communicate, I don't know, even daily with their parents, like if some little thing happens, they need to know, because sometimes the child is too ashamed to tell mom and dad, you know, this happened at school today. And so they need to be aware of that so that they can, if something is going on emotionally with that child because of this, they can take care of that at home. Because I don't think that should be taken care of in the classroom necessarily. Yeah. And something that I didn't research autism, I actually researched the ADHD one, because I felt there'd be so much to do on that one, like so much information to find. And there was. And one of the articles talked about is actually overdiagnosing it. And so that's a lot, kind of goes with the just being hyperactive. A child can just be, he's bored, you know. If a child is bored, they're obviously going to be hyperactive because they have nothing else to do. They don't have anything in front of them to focus on. And so they are going to obviously do whatever they want. And the article talks about that and how it's okay for a child to be hyperactive, but it's not okay to misdiagnose them with this ADHD, have them on medication that's actually going to slow down their progress. And so they talked about making learning accommodations for those who have ADHD or who are not necessarily diagnosed with ADHD, but that are hyperactive, so that they can limit so that they can limit their free time, because a lot of times the students who have ADHD, they create more free time for themselves because they don't want to focus on their schoolwork necessarily in the classroom. And it also talks about like having things for them to do, and then also to discipline the child, but don't over discipline them, because the study that this lady did, or this team of people did, was you know, if basically like if they decided if you continually tell a child, stop doing this, don't do this, be quiet, do all this, he's going to act out because he's tired of being told don't do something, you know. He's going to feel like he's very limited.
Right.
And so they really stress the importance of not limiting that child. And so I think that that's really important. And also having, like I talked about before, having an extra assignment or having more to the assignment to do for this child so that they don't become bored and sit there and then cause trouble, because that also distracts other children in the classroom as well. And then the other article was basically the same thing. Their study was a little bit different that they did, whereas they actually studied, the one before with the team of people, they studied students who actually were diagnosed with ADHD, but it was a misdiagnosis.
Oh, wow.
And then the other study was, I don't know, I'm assuming they actually were diagnosed with ADHD. It never said it was a misdiagnosis. I'm assuming that. But they just talked also about in the classroom, making those accommodations for that child, and being very firm, but also not over disciplining, because I think like with every child, they need to know what my limit is so I can reach that, and they need to, I don't know, have that self-respect that if I don't reach that, I have this standard where I should be. And so they talked about that a lot, and then the same things of like learning accommodations, validating the child, and then disciplining. So. And I think, yeah, I think it's really important for like, this is just my personal opinion, not necessarily with the study. I think like over diagnosing is an issue because there are so many people, and also this is kind of, I don't know if it's appropriate, but I don't like when people are like, oh, I have ADHD because I can't focus. That is not ADHD. That is you just not being able to focus.
Yeah.
The reason that is. And that just really frustrates me. Like when a parent, I teach preschool right now, and
cool.
This mom, like her son is very hyperactive, but I honestly think it's because he's bored, because like he's very advanced for his age. He's so advanced, and so obviously he doesn't want to play with like kids who still, I don't know, play in water all the time or things like that. He wants to do like fun things, you know, like go exploring, go do hands-on engaging things. And so he gets bored in preschool, obviously. And so he's going to act out, and his mom probably doesn't know how to accommodate that. And so she says, yeah, he has ADHD.
Oh my gosh.
Have ADHD, like, you're ignorant. And so, I don't know, I think that that's just so frustrating. And I think as a teacher, like being able to professionally talk to that mom and say, actually, like, he's just a little advanced. That's all it is. I think that that's so important. I don't know, and to raise awareness of that, because it's a huge fad, I feel like right now.
No, I agree. I think I think like a lot of people now just like use it just cause like, oh, well, I have ADHD. Oh, you have ADHD. And it's like, okay, are you really diagnosed with that?
Yeah.
Or are you just saying that? You're diagnosing yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not. Like, so, yeah, it's not.
It's not a joke. It really isn't. And so
yeah, it's like, it is interesting. And I agree, like, that people do get, like, they're, like, way highly medicated. And it's like, sometimes you don't need that.
And because a lot of times that medication makes you so sleepy.
Yeah.
And so it counteracts. And so all you want to do is sleep. So,
right. And, like, I'm so for, like, medication, like, okay, yeah, like, but don't, like, keep asking the doctors for more and more, like, I don't know, I just feel like that's not right, but.
It's not. No, I completely agree. And I think like that's kind of where it dives into that social and emotional domain, is because if you're overly medicated, your entire emotional being is going to be completely different
No,
than
yeah.
it was before. So
Yeah, I agree. That's awesome. Okay, then it says, okay, well, it says to share highlights from the domain interviews, but we kind of both did that, right?
oh yeah, and also I forgot, I haven't really tried anything out that
Oh, no, you're fine.
articles talked about, probably because it's Monday and I just missed it. But I guess if I were to try something out, maybe like it'd be really cool, like in my preschool class, to try out having more for this little boy to do, so he's not as bored. And so there's less, I'm limiting his ability to be sidetracked. I think that that would be good for his behaviors.
Yeah.
So I guess that's something I could try like in the next few weeks. But
Yeah. That's a good idea. I like that. You can actually like implement. I was like, I don't know. I don't have kids, so.
yeah, I don't have kids either. So
No, that's awesome. Okay, so then, yeah, but we already talked about all of the domains, so I don't think we really need to do that. Again. Okay, so now it says attempt to identify common elements of the effective interventions targeted to different problems in different domains.
okay.
So I think we're just supposed to, like, me and you are just supposed to come up with one for each domain, right?
Okay.
Or am I wrong? I don't know. Attempt to, I think, yeah, in different problems in different domains. So maybe we can like go with just like a couple in each domain.
Okay.
And we can just like figure out interventions we could do and like why we would use those or something. Does that work? Okay, so let's start with physical. So maybe just going back to ours and just seeing like what we used and then like which ones we want to kind of focus on.
Okay.
Okay, so what did you have for physical again? Like what are a couple of them?
Look at my chart. I had obesity, physical disabilities, abuse, malnutrition, and sleep deprivation. And then interventions for obesity, I said get children involved in more sports and less sedentary hobbies and introduce them to healthier foods.
Okay.
And then for physical disabilities, I had providing accommodations for children with disabilities and therapy in school. Okay. And I think also interventions for physical disabilities is I don't know, educating the parents on the resources that are available to children like that. Okay. I think sometimes, you know, you just have this child and they're wheelchair bound and you really have no idea because you have no experience with that. So I think it's really important to educate the parents on that. And then for abuse, schools and communities should educate children on where to turn when they need help and support. Schools need to be a safe and welcoming place for all children. I think that's really important. Like a child should feel comfortable enough in their classroom to be able to talk to their teacher about something like that if they feel unsafe at home.
Oh, yeah. And
then malnutrition, parents are responsible for providing adequate nutrients for their children. If they cannot, they need to access resources that will help them. And that kind of goes back to just accessing things in the community. And that's all the parents, in my opinion. Yeah, you're supposed to teach those things in the school, but it all starts at home for stuff like that.
Right.
And then sleep deprivation. I think that's more of a common thing than we really realize, because I know like children are just so tired sometimes, and it's because they're not getting enough sleep, whether it's like they have issues sleeping or their parents don't get them to bed in time or whatever it is. But I put that they need to implement a bedtime routine that ensures enough sleep for the child.
Okay. So let's just like pick two.
Okay. Yeah.
So I have malnutrition as well, and then I have the sleep deprivation. How do you say it?
Sleep deprivation?
Yeah. So we can talk about those two and just think of interventions we would use, just because, yeah, you threw around a lot of interventions, so maybe we can just like decide a couple for those, and then we'll move on to cognitive. Okay, so malnutrition. Let me see. I don't remember. Okay, so I put like just I guess just like options at school, like food at school for kids to have, and like I guess community help. To be honest, like I didn't really know what to put for like interventions for that one. I guess just like the parents just making sure their child is eating. Like I
Yeah.
don't know. What did you have for your interventions for that one again?
For malnutrition,
Yeah.
I put parents are responsible for providing adequate nutrients for their child, and if they cannot, they need to access resources that will be able to help them. So
Yeah.
whether it's a food bank or
Right.
to get government assistance for that, they need to be responsible enough to be able to do that.
Yeah. No, and I agree. And I think like sometimes parents have a hard time like kind of like humbling themselves and like just asking for help. I don't know, like no one likes to ask for help.
No.
And so like I think
it's embarrassing too. Like
yeah, like how embarrassing would that be asking like, hey, I don't have food for my kids. And so I was just thinking about yeah, they have to really take a step back and realize like this is their kids. Like they're gonna have to just humble themselves and just ask for help.
I think like that's harder said than done
It is though, yeah.
I couldn't imagine doing that. So
I know, yeah. But that's the only like really the only intervention I could think of is just like yeah, like the parents figuring it out. Like so I don't know what else what other interventions like they like I just feel like it's really the parent it's up to the parents to
yeah, I can't think of another intervention for that one.
I mean maybe just like even at school they have like the option of like maybe like cheaper meals or something. I don't know. My friend she worked on other sorry, say that again.
Why not like they have like the reduced lunch program at school?
Yeah.
A child shouldn't come to school and only look forward to lunch and then realize, oh my gosh, I won't eat until tomorrow. You know, time.
No, and I agree. And so my friend, she worked on like a reservation, like at a school, and so they were like poor kids, like came from poor families. And she said that they fed them breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah. Okay.
All 3 meals.
Yeah, and I have a girl in one of my classes who she's from a reservation, and she also like taught school when she was in high school there. And they would come to school and like they would have to eat breakfast. They would bathe them at the school.
Yes.
They would wash their clothes, have another change of clothes for them. So like they would come to school in a different outfit or in an outfit. They would shower, change into this new pair of clothes that they had washed for them at the school, and then that cycle would happen again tomorrow. So like they had 2 different outfits that they would exchange every day.
I know. That is just crazy to me. Like
that blows my mind.
Yeah, it's like pretty awesome, but I'm like, oh my gosh, can you imagine though, like everyone doing that? Like,
can you imagine like how little education will be able to be implemented into them teaching because they're so worried about, okay, 7:30 we have breakfast, at 11:30 we have lunch, I gotta wash their clothes, we gotta bathe them, we gotta brush their teeth, we gotta do all of this. And I'm just like, where does the education come in?
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, that's the only thing that came to my mind about that. But so yeah, I guess maybe we've just kind of come to the consensus about parents doing it. Figuring it out.
And then sleep deprivation. Did we say that we would do that one?
Yeah. So we can talk about that one. What did you?
I put as my intervention implementing a bedtime routine that ensures enough sleep for the child. And I think like some children need more sleep than others, so being able to kind of monitor and record how much time does my child need, you know, what if they only get 7 hours, do they have a breakdown in the middle of the day? Whereas if they have 9 hours, they don't. So I think that's really important to be able to monitor that. Yeah. And I honestly think that starts at home too. I think most of these do start at home. But I don't know, plan out your day to where you know, you're going to be able to get your child in bed by, 7:30.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think you really have to just like as parents, you have to just kind of each child is different, and so you have to kind of just figure it out, like what each child needs. But you have to stick with it. Like you can't just say, okay, this day, yeah, you can stay up, it's fine. But it's like when kids get sleep, they're so much more happy, and they're like way more awake and like willing to do work, like willing to do schoolwork. And so I don't know. I just feel like, yeah, sleep I feel like is a huge like a problem, but I don't know how to say it. Like a problem in like elementary school. There's a lot of kids that just stay up late.
And I don't understand that.
Yeah.
Like, why would you let your child just chill on the couch until
right?
they're 7 years old? They need to be in bed.
I know. I agree. I totally agree. Yeah. So maybe just I think I agree with you, just making a bedtime for them. Or I mean, I think everything we say is easier said than done. Like when you have kids, like, you know what I mean? Like that probably is so hard.
If I had a child, my views would be different, you know?
Right.
But because I don't, like, they're going to be a little different.
Right. No, exactly. I agree. I think it'd be totally different. Okay, so we'll move to cognitive. So, maybe, so we've talked a lot about ADHD, because you talked a lot about ADHD.
Yeah. So maybe we can talk about,
yeah, which one?
I don't know, maybe dyslexia?
Okay.
Or, yeah, I don't know, because we talked about.
Yeah, I just had like anxiety, not paying attention, not using
Anxiety is a good one.
Okay.
I think.
So dyslexia and anxiety. Okay, so what did you have? Because I didn't have dyslexia on mine. So what did you think? And then
I put building upon their strengths, work with the child's teacher to come up with reasonable accommodations and learning plans. And I think, I don't know, like this one, I want to say it starts at home, but also because like usually the parents are teaching the child like their alphabet, their 1 through 10 numbers, things like that, and like sight words and things like that. But also, like, you're not necessarily going to test your child at home like you would at school. So I think like it's a partnership, honestly.
Right.
Able to catch that with the teacher and the parent, because the teacher, like, they're gonna be screening that child. They're gonna be progress monitoring them. They're going to be giving them assessments, you know, weekly or biweekly. And so I think like a teacher would be able to catch that faster than a parent will.
Yeah.
They'll be able to say, okay, at the beginning of the school year, this is what they did, and this is the progress they have or have not made, and this is why. And so I think, I don't know, like, I think it falls back more with the teacher, but I think also is important for the parents to, I don't know, teach them correctly their alphabet and things like that, so they have a good foundation, I guess, of it. That's what I talked about.
No, I agree. Yeah, I think it takes like, I think it's like a group effort.
Yeah.
Like it's not really like, I mean, I do agree. Like, I think parents, like, they can't just send them off to school and then think everything's fine. Like, they have to work with them at home and, like, I don't know, like, you just have to. And so, but I agree with, like, teachers also, like, they're the ones that are probably going to recognize it. And so.
And they're trained to recognize that.
Exactly. Yeah.
They want to think that their child is perfect, you know?
Right.
They're not gonna do those little things like a teacher will.
Right. So what should we say our intervention is? Like,
I would say,
like continually, like, I don't know, like meeting.
I would just say, what'd you say? Sorry.
No, I just said like continually like meeting with them and just like keep, I don't know.
I would just say progress updates maybe. I don't know.
No, I like that.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea. I think progress updates is a good idea. And I think it needs to be from like home and school.
Yeah,
like,
they need to be on the same page and it's like a partnership. Yeah,
I really like that. Okay, and then anxiety, I just talked about. So to be honest, I haven't really like had like any real personal stories about anxiety. So I just like the only interventions I guess I kind of, well, the one that they brought up is just like talking to the child about their anxiety.
Okay.
And just like what they can both do to help control it. Like what are things like maybe the parents can do better to like help them have less anxiety, because maybe there's something the parents are doing making them have anxiety. And
Yeah,
so
like putting like too much pressure on the child. So
yeah,
there's like I can't do it all. I really can't.
right. No, yeah, I agree. So that's what I put for my interventions. I don't
Okay.
know. So if you have any other ideas.
So what did you say? Like, how would you say that in like a simple phrase?
I just said maybe just being open with
Okay.
the parents, or yeah, being open and like, because I really think like talking is very powerful. Like I think talking it out and talking how they're feeling, I think I don't know, I think it's not kept all inside. Like I think anxiety sometimes is kept all inside, and it just is like it builds and builds and builds, and then it's like they're done, like they can't handle anymore.
Yeah, I think communication is definitely key when something like that
Oh yeah.
talked about, for sure. Because
Yeah.
the more like you keep it inside, the worse
Yeah.
the explosion will be.
No, I agree. Yeah. Okay. And then for social, so we can just pick a couple. So let's see. I just did like social anxiety, bullying, not having friends, overly emotional. What are other ones? What did you have?
I put being lonely. I put bullying. I put ADHD. I put autism. That's it.
Okay, so maybe we can just like talk about like I think lonely goes with like not having friends and
Yeah,
not
for
having
sure.
connection. So maybe we can just talk about that and just like things they could, or interventions I guess they could do. Because I think that's like loneliness or like not having friends. It's kind of not. It's like a touchy subject. It's like how do you bring that up?
Because then
Like,
the child gets embarrassed.
yeah, and then it's like, well, you don't have friends, so like it's like what do you say? Yeah, so I think. So I'm like trying to think of interventions. Let me see what I put for like, well, if they're young, like if you see it while they're young, you could like have one-on-one play dates or something. And I think like one-on-one doesn't freak them out as much. And maybe it just kind of like weans them into it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
And then I also talked about like for teachers, they can do more group work at school.
I think that could go either way, honestly. Because like if a child has social anxiety, like sometimes that, I don't know, can make them more nervous.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right.
I think that's important to no, I think that that's a really good idea to do more group work, but I think like being able to monitor that, which is important.
Yeah, maybe even like in school they could do one like two, like just two of them.
Yeah, I think that's
like a big group.
Because especially like if you have 4 of them and like the 3 of them are really good friends, and then you have this one kid who's just
right.
So
no, yeah, I agree. That's great. Okay, so we did that. Okay. And then this is the last bit. So it just says, conclude by sharing your best general insight or your suggestion about effectively intervening to foster optimum development. And then the last 2 minutes we'll just have someone summarize. Okay, so share your best general insight or suggestion. Well, I guess when I got out of the interview, I think I just got out that a lot of them were parents, like a lot of the responsibility were the parents. There were some that like were teachers or like different other people, but the majority were like, you really had to have the parents on board. And so I guess as parents, like we have to really get to know our child and what their needs are, because every single child that we have is going to be different. And so I think we just need to, I think we just kind of need to figure out, because if we want them to have the, like, whatever, foster the optimum development, whatever that word is, I think that we need to.
Optimum development is like being able to let your child develop to their highest ability.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I think if we want them to do that, like, we're gonna have to, I don't know, like, truly know who they are.
Yeah.
And like give them the best options, like figure out what interventions they are gonna need, because every parent or every child is gonna need something different. Like there might be one child that you have might be not be able to make as many friends as your other child, and so they might be a little lonely. So it's like you have to make that what's the word, like I don't know the word, but you have to like figure it out. Like you have to just say, okay, this is what my child needs and this is what I have to do. So I think honestly this interview just helped me see like the different, like we have so many different things we can do with like problems that arrive like as our children are growing up, because if we want our child to like be the best that they can be, we just need to, I don't know, I think just to use these interventions and just make sure that we, and I guess understand them and like what our options are in our community. And because I think we have a lot of things in our community that we can use, but a lot of parents don't use them.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's what I just kind of got out of it, is just like researching the interventions we have and just really using them. Don't be like, I guess, afraid. I mean, easier said than done, but just kind of go for it. If it's going to help your child, you might as well use that intervention. So
yeah, I agree.
That's what I got.
Yeah, mine isn't too far off from that either. I think doing these interviews and seeing like the different situations and things like that, I think my primary thought is like it all starts at home. And I think that the more educated parents are about the development of their child in the different domains and maybe like the milestones they should be reaching, especially like at a younger age, and helping the parents know how to help their own children to reach these things, especially when they do have a disability or just a learning disability or whatever it may be. I think that, I don't know, educating the parents is so important, because so many times like parents will have a child and they think he's so healthy or she's so healthy, but in reality like are struggling, and like the parent just doesn't want to admit it. And so then they wait until they get into kindergarten or first grade and they're already behind. So then the teacher is having to play catch up with the child, and there's always these issues that arise. And I think that it's important to, I don't even know how to do that, honestly, to educate parents more on things.
Yeah, it's hard.
Some parents just don't care. Like they think, I know everything, I'm fine. I can have a child and raise it, but in reality, like you might be able to have a child, but raising it is a different story.
Yeah.
So, especially like with these domains, like especially social and emotional, like that's so hard to raise a healthy social child, well-balanced child. But I don't know. I think that's the biggest thing I learned was, educating the parents is so important.
It is important.
I think it could really eliminate so many issues in those domains. And once a child starts school, the parent and the child needs to be on the same page. If your child's teacher, says this child needs to be tested in this or needs to go to the doctor and be tested with this, then a parent should be open to that and not be offended or things like that. And I think that those two things together definitely go together, but together they, will create a healthier developing child wherever they go.
Yeah. No, I agree. Those are awesome points. Yeah. Okay, and then it just says, in the final 2 minutes of the recording, have a group member summarize the highlights from your group conversation, include what has been learned, and the conclusions drawn. This summary will help your instructor to evaluate your discussion. So, were you going to do that, or did...
I can definitely.
Okay.
So I'll just start with physical and then go through the domains.
Okay.
So physical, we decided, well, out of our little group, obesity was definitely the most popular, but we talked about interventions for malnutrition and then sleep deprivation. And we concluded that, it does start at home because they are the ones who should be responsible for feeding their child and putting their own child to bed at a decent time and ensuring that they get the sleep that they need. And then for cognitive, we did anxiety and dyslexia. And our intervention for anxiety was being open and realizing that communication is key and allowing your child to feel validated when they do communicate with you for things like that and make them feel like what they're saying is worthwhile and that you respect them enough to want to do something about it. And then dyslexia, we decided that progress updates between the teacher and the parent is the most important. And that would be our intervention. And then partnership with parents and teachers together, working together at home and at school to ensure the development of that child. And then for social and emotional, we talked about children being lonely and having our interventions would be one-on-one hangouts with other children. This would be like more at home, and then also at school having more group work in class and maybe being able to pair up students that you think would really help that child who is feeling lonely and that they may be able to create a friendship. And then that was it.
Yeah. And then, I think we just talked about, like, the last thing was just...
Oh, both of us thinking that... oh, sorry, you can keep going.
No, you're totally fine.
Sorry.
You're fine. No, you're doing great. No, I was just going to say, we just talked about the last thing, like how it can help our child, like, basically be the best that they can be. And I think we kind of agreed, like, just the parents just kind of need to be on the same page and just need to really know the interventions, because I really liked this assignment. I liked knowing the interventions and like what other people thought. And I think you have to do it like using them effectively. I think it's trial and error, like, and seeing like what your child, because some people are going to use different things that are going to be better for one or the other. And so I think that's what we kind of decided, how just parents just really need to like understand each child is going to be different, and you just need to figure out what is going to be best for your child and just kind of go for it. And then you'll go from there. And,
Yeah, I agree. No.
Do you have anything else to say?
I don't think so. I think I've said a lot.
No, you've been awesome. Okay, let me end it and then let me see one second.